Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome to The Briefing. I am Gloria De Piero. Well done if you've got great GCSE results, but if you're not so happy, don't worry, it can all still be fine. We'll be speaking to one member of Parliament who didn't get the GCSE results she wanted. Also, I've been sitting down with Nigel Farage to talk about his political legacy. Watch that later in the show. And also, we've got the details of a new government package to deal with the increasing number of Albanians coming here on small boats. Mark White will be telling us all about that, all that after your news.
Good afternoon. It's coming up to 1 minute past 12. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Merseyside Police says it has a number of positive lines of inquiry into the fatal shooting of 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Corbell. In a press conference given just a short while ago, police said they've identified a second man involved who was with the 35-year-old man who was shot in Liverpool. Convicted drug dealer Joseph Nee will be recalled to prison for breaching the terms of his release. However, the gunman remains at large despite pleas from officers for his surrender. Detective Chief Superintendent Mark Mean says the force are working around the clock to find Olivia's killer.
Our officers continue to carry out extensive inquiries, and I can confirm that there are a number of very positive lines of inquiry that we are pursuing. I asked for the man responsible for this brutal, callous, thoughtless attack to surrender himself to the police. Unfortunately, that individual has failed to do that. But my message to him remains the same. We will not rest until we find you, and we will find you.
Well, in that press conference, Merseyside Police also confirmed the arrest of a man and woman following another fatal shooting in Liverpool. Council worker Ashley Dale was found with gunshot wounds in her back garden in the Old Swan neighbourhood on Sunday. The GCSE pass rate this year has fallen since last summer, but does remain above pre-pandemic levels. The number of top grades is also down from last year, but higher than in 2019. Students across England, Wales and Northern Ireland are receiving their GCSE results after sitting exams in person for the first time in 3 years. Minister of State for School Standards, Will Quince, says grades are likely to have been purposefully lowered from the record highs seen in the previous 2 years.
This is the first time that we've gone back to examinations since 2019, but we haven't just gone back purely to examinations. We've gone back to examinations, but with adaptations. So young people recognising the disruption that they've faced over the last couple of years. Things like having knowledge about what's going to be in exam papers, having a choice about the questions that you choose to answer, but also Ofqual's approach to grading.
Sector leaders have warned that NHS dentistry is on its last legs, despite data showing a surge in dental treatments. The British Dental Association says the NHS dentistry needs urgent and radical change. New NHS figures show over 26 million courses of treatment were delivered by dentists between April to March this year. But the dental sector hasn't recovered to pre-pandemic levels of activity, sitting at around 2/3 of over 38 million courses of treatment provided in 2019 and 2020. British Gas has announced it'll donate 10% of its energy supply profits to help customers cope with soaring bills. Its parent company, Centrica, expects an initial contribution of £12 million, with grants of up to £750 for some customers. It comes as the next energy price cap set to be announced tomorrow, with some forecasting a typical annual home energy bill could reach up to £3,500. Will Hodgson, consumer champion at How to Save It, told GB News he expects the price cap to go up even more.
What we're expecting to happen is there's going to be an announcement that the price cap is going to rise from where we are now, just under £2,000, up to about £3,600. Where we are is in a state of complete reliance on very, very expensive gas, and that applies at a national level, where we've got it in our fuel mix, and it also applies, in our homes, in our businesses, where we're using so much of it.
Tory leadership hopeful Rishi Sunak has criticised the government's response to COVID and claims he was prevented from talking about the negative side effects of lockdown during government meetings. The former Chancellor told The Spectator magazine the government's biggest mistake was giving too much power to scientists. He claims Sage removed some opinions from its final minutes and that a Treasury official would listen to the meetings and brief him on the omissions later. The Texas police chief tasked with protecting schools at Uvalde has been fired more than 3 months after the mass shooting that killed 19 children and 2 teachers. Pete Arredondo's termination was voted unanimously by the Texas School Board last night. He was criticised for his lack of leadership after reports that it took officers more than 77 minutes to storm the school and stop the gunman. A federal jury has awarded Kobe Bryant's widow $16 million in damages in a case involving photos of him after his death. Vanessa Bryant sued Los Angeles County, accusing first responders of taking and sharing images from the helicopter crash that killed her husband and daughter in 2020. Kobe and 13-year-old Gianna Bryant were on their way to a basketball game with 7 others before the crash. Everyone on board died. Russian airstrikes on a train station in eastern Ukraine has killed at least 22 people, including a young boy. Several homes were also destroyed in the attack. President Volodymyr Zelensky announced the strike during a UN Security Council meeting yesterday. Ukraine was already on high alert as it celebrated its Independence Day. And Albanians arriving in the UK on small boats will be removed from the country faster as part of a new agreement reached between the British and Albanian governments. The deal will see senior Albanian law enforcement officials based in the UK to help identify those with no legitimate claim for asylum. GB News has been told that around 6,000 Albanians have crossed the Channel so far this year. This is GB News. We'll have more as it happens now, though. It's back to the briefing with Gloria.
Coming up this hour on The Briefing, it's GCSE results day for students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. We'll be speaking to our reporters from across the country. The Home Office agrees an emergency deal to rapidly remove Albanians arriving here on small boats. Our Home Affairs editor calls it a crisis within a crisis. He'll be here to explain why. And I've sat down with Nigel Farage, who tells me about the abuse he suffered at the hands of some Remainers. Give me your political briefing. Send in your views and opinions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. So young people across the country have received their exam results this morning, and some will be more pleased than others. Overall, top grades are down this year, but they remain higher than pre-pandemic levels. Joining me now is GB News South West of England reporter Jeff Moody. Jeff, how's the mood? I believe you were with some children, young people, I should say, earlier when they received their results. Tell us about it.
Yes, the mood down here is brilliant. This is the Mountbatten School in Romsey, which is actually where I went to school, Gloria, 100 odd years ago, a long, long time ago. It doesn't smell quite so badly of boiled cabbage that it did back in the day, but it's a very good school. It's a very community-led school, a very family-feel school, and that's really reflected in the results. 35% of students here at Mountbatten scored the top marks, which is higher than the national average. Well, some of those students were brave enough to open those results on camera. Let's have a look how they got on.
Like 7s, 8s and 9s, upper kind of A stars, A grades. I got all 9s apart from 1. I got 9 9s and an 8.
Excellent. Congratulations. Congratulations. How do you feel?
I'm speechless.
Better than you anticipated. Congratulations. So what do you think you'll go on and do now?
Well, I got to do my A-levels first, but hopefully... I can't believe it. I actually can't believe it.
What are you hoping to get?
Honestly, I'm just hoping to pass, if I'm being honest. I've had a very tough year, if I'm going to be honest, so I didn't actually expect to do my GCSEs this year. I got an 8 in English language, an 8 in English literature, a 9 in history, a 7 in maths, 8 in geography, a 9 in religious studies, a 7 in biology, a 6 in chemistry, a 6 in physics, and a 6 in Spanish.
So not only have you passed them all, you've done really, really well.
Thank you so much.
Are you pleased?
Yeah, I am actually really pleased. I never expected this.
Oh, congratulations, that's fantastic news. Well, interesting enough with the girl that you've just seen, I then went on to ask her, well, now you've got these good grades, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? And she said, I really want to be a politician. She said, it's time for change, I want to become a politician. So, of course, I said, which party? And she said, Gloria, you'll be very pleased to know she wants to be a Labour MP.
Oh, well, good luck with that, but thank you so much. What brave people they were to open their results on television, and it brought a smile to all of our faces to watch their reactions. Jeff, brilliant stuff. Thanks so much. Let's bring in GB News Northern Ireland reporter now, Doogie Beattie. Doogie, I think you're at your old school today, aren't you? And your daughter's got her exam results too. Can you bring us good news?
Yes, my daughter got her exam. Yeah, my daughter got her exam results today, and I'm at a school that I'm a governor in. She passed all and is now awaiting me to take her out for lunch, actually, and probably rob me blind. But sure, what else can you do? She deserves it. All these children deserve this. This has been the first of these children that started Key Stage 4 by themselves in a pandemic, remote learning at home. We've all had the tears at bedtime. We've all been scratching our heads as parents. We have sat online to try and figure out basically their homework. And we have to say as well, the teachers have had an absolute I don't know how you could put this, head melt of a time, I suppose, with trying to teach people remotely and also run family life at the same time. Then we have the head teachers that have had to manage budgets here, have had to become business people, have had to realise how to bring extra teachers in to fill in for those that were in COVID. And of course they are now going into a winter where energy bills are going to be that high that these same headmasters have now to decide whether they're going to open the windows and follow those sort of COVID lines, or are they going to close them and keep the heat inside the schools? So these children are the first of these the pupils that have actually passed these exams. The ones in third year that are coming into fourth year and second year into third year, we must remember those. They started school and had no interaction whatsoever for over a year and a half. Schools then opened about half a year into that 2-year lockdown, and this is the result. The result for this school is the best exam results they have had since they opened their doors. So congratulations for them. It may be a different story in certain parts of the UK, of course, where I suppose parents weren't as available, or there wasn't as many computers in the house in order order to facilitate that home learning.
Thank you very much indeed, Doogie. And I think you've given us a new word, head melt, to describe what teachers went through during the pandemic. Thank you. It's been tough for everyone. Next, we can speak to Labour MP and shadow frontbencher Vicky Foxcroft, who is enjoying a successful career indeed, despite getting poor GCSE results. Vicky Foxcroft, good to see you. Take me back to your GCSE results day, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't think that I was particularly going to do well. And so when I opened my results, I wasn't surprised to see that I hadn't done that well.
How do you mean not that well? How tough was it for you on results day?
So I didn't get any, what would be, C's or grade 4s now. So basically, I couldn't kind of go on and do the other things that everybody else felt that they could do who went and got grade C's or above. It wasn't...
Sorry, Vicky. So you left school at 16, did you? And did you go and get a job?
No, I actually went on to college. I had an amazing careers advisor who went and suggested that I did a BTEC. So I did a BTEC first in performing arts and then a BTEC national. Obviously, I never thought I was going to be an MP in the future, and actually went and resat my English at night school and surprisingly got a B in that as well. And then went on to university against all of the odds where nobody from school would have thought I would be doing that.
But that's a really important message, that for those people, perhaps members of their family who haven't got great GCSE results today, you can still go on to have a great career. Did you know straight away, as soon as you saw those results, I'm going to have to sort of go to night school or go and do a BTEC?
I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And that's the reason why I said the careers advisor actually was really important, because I was thinking I'd just go on and resit my GCSEs again. But actually, the situations wouldn't have changed if I'd have done that. So actually, it was after those conversations that I saw that there was other opportunities for me to be able to get the equivalent of 4 GCSEs at grade C or above.
And you will have been out in your own constituency. You have a London constituency. London's done very well today. Have you seen, tears and joy?
Yeah, I was lucky to join Prendergast Vale today. A school that's been seen in the past to be struggling, and they did really well. And, the kids were all there and really excited. And when they were opening the results, I found it really emotional, kind of struggled not to have a few tears myself. I actually saw one young girl who was crying her eyes out. So I just went over and was like, "Oh, how have you done?" And she's like, "I'm not showing anybody my results. I don't want anybody to see it. I've not done very well." And so obviously I was like, well, guess what? I got none. And look at me, I'm an MP. And she's going to go on and actually do a BTEC, interestingly. And so I was like, oh my God, I did a BTEC as well. And then we ended up having quite a laugh. And then she did show me the results. And actually, she got quite a few C's. So
she did better than you, actually.
Yes, she did.
It's interesting that the BTEC, which actually... some of the courses on BTECs are under threat at the moment. The government wants to sort of introduce a new system. But it's interesting that for yourself, who didn't do that well on GCSE results day, for the young woman you were talking to at school this morning, then you saw that as a real route for you.
Yeah, absolutely, because, it directly correlates with the equivalent of GCSEs and with A-levels, which means in the future, and even though when I was first at college, I didn't see myself going on to university, but you can actually use those grades to go on to university. And that's, really, life-changing for some people.
That's been very uplifting. There is a great future for you. For everybody who hasn't done so well today. I certainly didn't do brilliantly. A bit better than you, Vicky. Thank you for your time today. Cheers. Coming up next, Rishi Sunak says scientists had too much influence on lockdown measures and he was gagged from saying so. We'll speak to the big beast of Fleet Street, Andrew Pearce and John Rentoul. That's after a short break.
Hello again, I'm Ada McGibbon from the Met Office. The heavy, thundery rain that we've seen across parts of East Anglia in the southeast eases during the next few hours. It then feels cooler compared with yesterday, and brighter skies follow the main area of rain, which has moved up from the continent and is now being swept away by a cold front. Meanwhile, a ridge of high pressure builds in from the west, but still some changeable weather for western Scotland, Northern Ireland, scattered showers here. Best of the sunshine, northern and western England as well as Wales. Cooler air arriving here compared with the last few days. And finally, by the end of the afternoon, the heaviest of the rain clears away from East Anglia. A few showers follow and a much less humid feel, with temperatures here reaching 25 or 26 Celsius, low 20s for Western England, Wales and high teens for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Now, the showers continue in Western Scotland and Northern Ireland overnight. In fact, some more prolonged rain at times here, with clear spells elsewhere across much of southern and eastern Scotland, England and Wales. But temperatures dropping away a little further compared with the recent nights, so especially in the southeast, a more comfortable night for sleeping. Temperatures dipping to the mid to low teens. Elsewhere, I think it will turn largely cloudy by the start of the day across parts of northern and western England and Wales. Some heavy showers move into western fringes here, and some particularly lively downpours are expected by the afternoon across central and southern Scotland, as well as the far north of England. Elsewhere, sunny spells and temperatures at around average for the time of year, so low to mid-20s for England and Wales, high teens, low 20s for Scotland and Northern Ireland. But the heavy showers continue across central and southern Scotland into Friday evening. 1 or 2 showers for western parts of England as well as West Wales. Clear spells elsewhere. And as we head into the weekend, the weather tends to look a bit more settled as a ridge of high pressure builds. Many places see sunny spells, but there'll still be 1 or 2 showers.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. There's a little over a week left of voting in the Tory leadership race. An underdog, Rishi Sunak, has come out swinging on lockdown, attacking government scientists and saying a lack of scrutiny of coronavirus measures. Let's hear the thoughts of consultant editor at the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, and chief political commentator at The Independent, John Rentoul. Good to see you, gentlemen. Andrew, I'm going to start with you and the comments from Rishi Sunak today, saying SAGE, that's the body of top scientists who advised the government during the pandemic, was given too much authority. Do you agree with that?
Well, Yeah, I do, and there were many Tory MPs who were calling for a detailed Treasury assessment of the impact of COVID lockdown, and one never came. And that would, of course, have been something Rishi Sunak could have done, whether he was told he couldn't do it or whether he didn't think it was necessary. We know that he was one of those, he was, I think, the first cabinet minister to speak out and say, we've got to learn to live with this. And he was, according to what he said yesterday, rebuked by the Cabinet Office for that. But there's many people who think the lockdown, particularly the second lockdown, was too prolonged, too severe, and not enough consideration was given to the economic impact, the effect on mental health, the effect on children's schooling, universities, the whole impact. It was all seen through the prism of the scientists. And I think Rishi Sunak will be resonating with lots of Tory MPs, lots of Labour MPs, I suspect too. But you might think, why didn't he make more of this at the time? As Chancellor, he had a very big voice in Cabinet.
John Rentoul of The Independent, there was no cost-benefit analysis to the lockdowns. It's a fair comment. Do you agree?
Well, there wasn't a cost-benefit analysis because it was too difficult to compile. But, I mean, Andrew is absolutely right. This interview, I think, is a sign of Rishi Sunak's political inexperience. I mean, he has portrayed himself as weak because if he was unable to persuade the quad of senior ministers who were making the decisions, that's Matt Hancock, Michael Gove and Boris Johnson. And Boris Johnson, remember, was just as lockdown sceptic as Rishi Sunak. Now, if Rishi couldn't persuade those four ministers of the rightness of his position, then his best course now would be to shut up about it.
OK, let's move on to GCSEs. And I'm afraid, gentlemen, I am going to come on to ask you how you did in your GCSEs. They may even have been O-levels, although you're still spring chicken, so I'm sure they weren't. Right. I mean, it's sort of COVID-related in a way, Andrew. Fewer passes and top grades. Is that a necessary correction to high teacher-assessed grades for the last 2 years?
I'm afraid it is, just in the same way we had that with A-levels. Particularly the grade inflation with A-levels was staggering. It was something, I think, what was it, last year, 44% got A or A star, whereas before the pandemic, the figure was more like 19 or 20%. Teachers stepped in to do the assessments. We had that brief experiment with the disastrous algorithm brought in by the disastrous Gavin Williamson, the worst education secretary in history. But the same is happening here with GCSEs. They are paying the price of over-optimistic, the teachers overestimating where the grades were last 2 years. It's tough for some of the kids, I know, and they've had a rough time, haven't they? I think school children, people going to university, have had a really, really bad COVID because they didn't get the teaching they should have had, the face-to-face teaching. I never went to university, unlike John Rentoul, but I'm told that the big part of university is the experience of being at university, the socialising, the lectures, the seminars, and of course a lot of those kids who went through university never got to experience that, which I think is very sad.
Do you know what I think is sad, Andrew? I didn't know that you hadn't been to university, but I bet there's hardly any newcomers into the Westminster political beat who share that experience today. And I think most people would agree that is a bad thing. Andrew, how did you do in your GCSEs?
I didn't do badly, actually. We weren't a very academic family, it has to be said. I was the youngest of four, so I got 8, and they were O-levels, I'm afraid, so I am showing my age. I got 1 A, but a lot of people, I got an A in economics, so but I can't remember much about it, to be honest, so don't ask me for any detailed views on what we should be doing with money supply, because it's not my strongest point.
John, I want to talk to you about the differences in the attainment gap between North and South in these GCSE results. London charging ahead. What happened to levelling up? Shouldn't this be the first example? If it was working, we should be seeing a narrowing of that attainment gap, but it's not happening.
No, it isn't, and that's a very difficult thing to deal with. I mean, the Labour government did actually start to narrow that attainment gap before 2010, but since then, I'm afraid there's been less emphasis on that. I mean, in A-levels, actually, I think the evidence is that the gap widened when teachers were allowed to do assessments, because private schools use that flexibility more than state schools did. And that has started to be put right. Now, I'm not sure what's happening on GCSEs, I'm afraid, but you did give me time to work out, to try to remember my O levels, and I shall give away even more of my age than Andrew by revealing that mine were numbered rather than lettered.
Oh. Gosh, what happened in the olden days, John?
I had ones, twos, threes, and fours.
That sounds good.
Of A's and B's.
A's and B's.
I think he was also. I think John was also taught maths on an abacus.
Oh, you're both.
I did maths and additional maths, you cheeky pup.
You did maths and additional maths, and John, I always thought you were quite normal. Right, okay, let's talk about maths. The cost of living. The TUC this week called for a £15 an hour minimum wage. John, what's not to like about that?
Well, it's for the birds, isn't it? I mean, because the average wage at the moment, the median, the middle wage, 50% of people earn below £14.10 an hour. So if you put the minimum up above the average, then you're just talking nonsense economics. I mean, it can't be done. But to be fair to the TUC, they know that, and so what they're saying is that this is a longer term aspiration. When the average wage reaches £20 an hour, they want the minimum wage to be £15 an hour. Now, obviously, that's going to happen rather faster than they expected because inflation and the wage price spiral is going to push wages up so that we hit that £20 an hour average rather earlier than expected. But that's essentially what's going on. The TUC is under pressure from a lot of Trotskyist impossibilism in the trade union movement, where they want to set the £15 an hour minimum now.
Andrew, we've got to do something, haven't we, to help people? People are going to work and they can't afford the basics. So increasing the minimum wage sounds like a logical solution.
Yeah, it does. But look, there's so much pressure on so little money. And John's right, this is really unrealistic. And we know, of course, there are some unions that want the TUC to get together to organise a general strike, which I think would be absolutely disastrous for the country, and probably disastrous for the trade unions, because I'm not a great student of history, but I do know when we had one and only general strike back in 1926, it ended after 9 days, and it ended very badly for the workers, very badly for the trade unions. I think a certain Winston Churchill had prepared rather well for a general strike, and if they were to go down that route again, I think the government would be ready and waiting for them.
Thank you both for your thoughts today, for your wisdom. Andrew and John, thank you. Coming up next, a new plan to send Albanians arriving in small boats back to their country. And Nigel Farage sits down with me to tell me about the abuse he still suffers from his political critics. First, it's your latest headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 12:32. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Merseyside Police says it's identified a second man involved in the fatal shooting of 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Corbell in Liverpool on Monday. In a press conference given earlier, detectives said the newly identified man was with the 35-year-old who was shot. They still haven't confirmed he's convicted drug dealer Joseph Nee. They confirmed the gunman remains at large despite pleas from officers for his surrender. Detective Chief Superintendent Mark Comine says the force is working around the clock to find Olivia's killer.
Officers continue to carry out extensive inquiries, and I can confirm that there are a number of very positive lines of inquiry that we are pursuing. I asked for the man responsible for this brutal, callous, thoughtless attack to surrender himself to the police. Unfortunately, that individual has failed to do that. But my message to him remains the same. We will not rest until we find you, and we will find you.
The GCSE pass rate this year has fallen since 2021, but does remain above pre-pandemic levels. The number of top grades is also down from last year, but higher than in 2019. Students across England, Wales and Northern Ireland are receiving their GCSE results today after sitting exams in person for the first time in 3 years. British Gas has announced it'll donate 10% of its energy supply profits to help customers cope with soaring bills. Its parent company, Centrica, expects an initial contribution of £12 million with grants of up to £750 for some customers. It comes as the next energy price cap set to be announced tomorrow, with some forecasting a typical annual home energy bill could reach up to £3,500. TV online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. It's back to Gloria with the briefing in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Many Albanians arriving in the UK on small boats will be rapidly removed back to their own country after the Home Secretary signed a fast-track agreement with her Albanian counterpart. It comes as GB News has learnt that a massive 60% of those currently arriving across the Channel are from the tiny nation of less than 3 million on the Balkan Peninsula. Well, we can speak now to GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, just tell us how significant an issue the Albanian contingent is to the small boats crisis.
Yeah, I mean, I describe it as a crisis within a crisis. We're already dealing with the small boat crisis. Within that now are the growing numbers of Albanians, very significant indeed, to the point where it is now resulted in the Home Secretary signing what is, to all intents and purposes, an emergency agreement with Albania to try to rapidly remove those who have no right to be here. And that could mean that they are removed within weeks. Now, to give you an illustration of the numbers that are coming here, 28,500 people arrived by small boats so far this year. I don't know if we've got any graphics.
Ah, there we go. Yeah.
23,500 have arrived, I should say, by small boat so far this year. Now, that compares to 28,500 in the whole of last year. Of those, currently at the moment, 60% are Albanians. And that figure is about 6,000 for the year so far. But at the moment, because it's 60%, every arrival, 6 and 10 of those on a boat, effectively, are going to be from Albania. Now this, to give you an illustration of just how the number of Albanians on these boats has grown, in 2020, there were just 50 Albanians who were detected on small boats. So today, so far, we're looking at a day of about 400 people who are arriving. The conditions are flat calm again out in the channel, having been a bit windy before. So there are more boats arriving, about 400 or so. So we can expect that 250 or more of those 400 are from Albania.
Now, there is a school of thought, and there is some evidence to it, that these are not illegal immigrants. They are people who go on and are granted asylum. There's just no other route for them to get here. Does that hold sway, that they're being demonised?
Yes, I mean, it doesn't really hold sway, I don't think, when you look at the claims that are being made by human rights lawyers and the charities saying that, you know, the vast majority of those coming by small boat get their asylum claims granted, so therefore they cannot be illegal immigrants and they are being demonised. But actually, the truth of it is that since this crisis began to manifest in 2018, 85% of those who have since arrived in small boats, many, many thousands, haven't yet had their asylum claims properly processed. So they don't have a decision on whether they're being granted asylum or not. So it's incorrect to say that 3/4. Generally, in the asylum system, 75% of those who are claiming asylum are granted asylum. But with the small boat issue specifically, then the vast majority haven't even been dealt with yet. And because we have tougher Immigration and Borders Bill that's just come into law, that is actually looking at the issue of coming across in small boats as one element that would count against someone claiming asylum and potentially, you know, could result in that eventual asylum refusal.
Mark White, as ever, thank you. Now it's time for the latest edition in my Life and Times series. This is where I talk to the most influential people in British politics. This week I sat down with the architect of Brexit, GB News presenter Nigel Farage. We talked about his career in politics. Nigel Farage, how exciting, your Life and Times. You definitely have a political legacy. I just want to start by asking you, because we're nearly at the end of the Conservative leadership race, if you were a Conservative Party member, who would you vote for?
Oh, if I backed net zero and open borders and high taxation, who would I back? I mean, I wouldn't be a Conservative member. They've given up. They're not Conservative. Truss is the least worst. And I think the fact that she's prepared to say things that are a bit out there and a bit risky, if they're going to get the country out of the mess we're in, it's going to need some unconventional thinking. So she's the least worst candidate.
Well, talking of unconventional thinking, when you first started talking about leaving the European Union, it was totally fringe. Just wasn't really on the political agenda. What makes leaving the European Union your life's mission? It was very unusual.
It does seem bonkers, doesn't it? Because at the time, you know, I had a very good job. I just set my own company up, started to make some real money, playing good golf, going to the pub on Sundays.
Just on Sundays?
The church had lost out by then. And, you know, no, life was going very, very well. And suddenly, this became my mission. It was really exchange rate mechanism. It was pegging sterling effectively against the Deutschmark, seeing record house repossessions, record business bankruptcies. And when I talked to people, both Labour and Conservative politicians at the time, and I met them for lunch to find out more, I'd meet quite a few who agreed with me. And I'd say, well, why don't you say so? Oh, well, it's all too difficult. And I thought, well, what a cowardly lot we've got. I also realised that in my little village in Kent, people felt very differently to what I'd read in the Times newspaper or see on the BBC. And I could see then there was a massive gap between the two. And what really sealed it for me was clever chap said to me, No free people in the history of mankind have ever willingly given up the right to govern themselves. And that sealed the deal for me. Someone's got to do this. So we had a by-election was caused because the Conservative Member of Parliament for Eastleigh died in somewhat strange circumstances. There was a by-election. UKIP had been founded 6 weeks before. And I put my hand up and said, I am that soldier. So I stood in the by-election, having never stood for anything before. And I got 1,000 votes. It wasn't very many, but I just enjoyed it. I loved it. And so I kept on going. And even though, as the years went by, it was having a very detrimental effect on my life, be it business life, family life, financial life, it just became my mission. And I would say in the end, why did I keep going for all those years? Sheer bloody mindedness.
We're out of the European Union. If the result had been 52-48 Remain, would you have let it lie?
I think had it been that, there'd have been no debate about a second referendum. None of it. It would have been absolutely dead and buried. I would have faced a very big choice at that moment, what to do. Either walk away and say you did your best, you got a referendum, it would never have happened without you, or to politically, establish UKIP as the independence party, to fight the next election, and probably to get millions more votes than we even got in 2015. I don't know what I would have done. I honestly don't know what I would have done. But it would have been very difficult. It would have been very difficult. You wouldn't have had people in the House of Commons calling for a second referendum.
No, I agree with you.
It would have been done. So I think the reality is I would have walked away.
Wow. In 2006, we're talking about UKIP now, David Cameron, the leader of the Tory party, described your former party, UKIP, as fruitcakes, loonies and closet racists. Let's take fruitcakes and loonies together to start with. Well,
I loved it because 2 years before, Michael Howard had said we were cranks and gadflies, and so I'd immediately formed the Gadfly Club, a dining club, and made myself honorary life president. As soon as Cameron did that, we had fruitcake parties and thoroughly enjoy. I mean, if you abuse an Englishman, he'll often pick it up and wear it as a badge of honour. The closet racist thing, I was a bit upset about it at the time, but you begin to learn that if people haven't got an argument to put against you, they just throw insults. And those insults, if those insults don't stick, then they do you no harm.
Many people in the country love you. Many people in the country loathe you. I suppose those that loathe you, they say you're a xenophobe, that you sow the seeds of division. Obviously, I certainly wouldn't say that about wanting to leave the European Union. That's a completely legitimate thing. The hatred that you get, does it? Some of it must affect you.
Well, it's funny. You see, I mean, if you meet a Times reader, the Times were probably consistently the nastiest newspaper to me. I mean, absolutely vile. The sneerocracy of the Times, the Matthew Parrises, we're so superior to you and everybody else's. When I meet Times readers now, they say, oh, well, actually, you're not quite what I imagined you to be. So there are ways that you can diffuse some of this. Look, the hard, liberal, globalist types who see the European Union really as a beginning for a sort of greater world government, who don't believe in national identities or national borders. I am the enemy. Boris never was. I mean, they all knew Boris didn't really believe in any of it. I was, and I still am. I still am. And I'm quite surprised all these years on at how much hatred I still get today in the street.
Give me an example of the hatred you might get today.
I mean, last Monday, I was on an aeroplane coming back from, I'd been in Europe for the weekend, in Europe, outside the European Union, but in Europe. And, I'm on an aeroplane and there's a young guy there, sort of studenty type. He looked fairly scruffy, so he must have been. Really getting abuse on the plane, really getting abuse. I just said, look, son, you've had your say. Sit down, shut up, or I'll make sure Transport Police delay your journey home. That was one example. The week before, I was coming out of the GBNews studios. There was a young couple there. Oh, they want to kill me, smash my head in. I mean, so it's still there every day. It's still there every day from that particular group. I mean, to some extent, it's not their fault. They've been brainwashed at university. They have not been taught critical thinking. They've not been taught...
Are you not taught to abuse people at university?
Well, in a way they are, because a lack of critical thinking means rather than respecting the fact that somebody else has a different point of view, you believe that your view is virtuous and the other view is evil. So in a sense, this indoctrination of our kids is breeding much of this behaviour. Does it bother me? Not a lot.
Does it bother your children?
Yes. And that's hard. And that's hard. Look at my surname. There aren't many of us. It's a very, very unusual surname. No more than 25 of us living in the entire United Kingdom. So yeah, it's not been easy for them, and they've had to grow up pretty quickly and learn to deal with it. But yeah, not easy. And I feel, what we bring upon ourselves in life is what we bring upon us. And we all do stupid things, or we all do good things, or we do whatever we do, and we live with the consequences. The fact that what you do affects all those around you is something that I have some guilt about, yes.
Have you ever felt frightened when people are abusing you?
I think when there's a mob of several hundred people...
Has there been?
Oh, many times. Many times. And if there's a mob of several hundred people and you're in a car trying to get through and they're all banging on the roofs, I mean, thoughtful. I'm never going to admit to being scared, but thoughtful. So I wouldn't give them the pleasure of admitting it, even if it was true.
Just a personal question at the it's gone so quickly. I read that your dad, who's still with us, lovely. I read, I don't know if this is true, that he was an alcoholic.
Yeah, he had big drink problems, but he packed it up in 1971 and went on and had a successful life and successful career. And what family doesn't have a problem at some point with somebody? I've got 4 kids. I've seen all sorts of problems with them as they've grown up. So yeah, but I mean, and some of the press try to make great play of this. And the insinuation wasn't it, that Nigel was drunk all the time. It was really funny. So it was the Mail. The Mail were paying photographers 300 quid to get a picture of Nigel in a Westminster pub with a pint. So these pictures kept appearing in the Mail of me with a drink. And of course, classic PR advice would be never appear in a pub, never be seen with a drink. I just thought, no. We're going to turn this round the other way. I am. It wasn't an invention, because at 5 o'clock I quite like going with the staff for a drink. And I then thought, no, I'm going to turn this the other way. I'm going to say, right, boom, we'll do our press conferences in pubs or whatever we'll do. And actually, it did me no harm at all. Because do you know what ordinary folk do? They work and they go out on a Friday night for a drink. It's what ordinary folk do. It's what I've always done. It wasn't a media or PR creation, but it was their attempt to demonise me that actually turned into a big positive.
And final question. So when I was an MP, you did Question Time all the time, but I happened to do it twice while I was an MP. I wasn't very good at it, so I stopped doing it. But you were on the panel both times.
Yeah.
And you sort of go in and I did, and I felt a bit anxious and trembly. And in the green room, before you go on, there's alcohol. And I thought, God, there's no way I can touch that. Now, you were, getting stuck in. And I was thinking, oh, my God, I mean, is it going to be OK? And you were absolutely word perfect. And, probably demolished all of us, to be honest, on the panel. But, that's a superpower.
Well, it's also psychological, isn't it? Because in the green room, there is gamesmanship going on. There is who has got the upper hand, who is frightened of who. And I learned really early on with Question Time that you walk into a green room, never get there early, be the last to arrive, make lots of noise, make a bit of an entrance, And when they offer you a drink, rather than a cup of tea, ask for a proper drink, say it loudly, look at the rest of the panel, and you're saying to them, do you know what? I don't care. I'm not frightened of you. I couldn't care less. I'm going to enjoy this. And I think it makes the fact that I seem so relaxed, the fact that I'm having a drink, the fact that I'm chatting to all the staff and enjoying myself, I think it puts the fear of God into the others.
I could have talked to you for a lot longer than this, Nigel.
I wish you had.
Nigel Farage, you certainly have left a legacy on our politics, and that's why so interested to hear your life and times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, tomorrow, we're expecting an announcement on the price cap for energy bills as concerned families across the country due to rising prices intensifies. Joining me now in the GB studio is our economic and business editor, Liam Halligan. Liam, as we approach tomorrow, which is not going to be good news because the cap will rise, there's lots of different options being suggested by politicians, the energy companies. What do you think are the strongest runners and riders to how we're going to be helped?
So what we're going to hear tomorrow from Ofgem, which is the energy price regulator, is the new cap on the average household fuel bill, the annual fuel bill. It's currently just under £2,000. That's a huge amount of money. But it's going to go up a lot because it's linked to wholesale energy prices, particularly wholesale gas prices, and they, of course, have gone into orbit, not least because of the war in Ukraine. So the price cap could easily be near to £3,000, so a 50% increase. And there's talk it could go a lot higher again in January and then in April 2023. But what I'd say, Gloria, if I may, on sort of behalf of the political and media class, because a lot of other people aren't saying this and a lot of our politicians aren't saying it because this Tory leadership crisis is so overextended, in my personal view, it will be OK in the sense that the government will move to help people. I do think there's the possibility of some blackouts this winter. Certainly the government is planning for scenarios along those lines, but contingency plans are being put in place. I do think we will see a major package, sharpish, literally within a week or two of Liz Truss, as it's probably going to be Liz Truss, entering number 10. The question you ask is how do we do it? Because we can't just wish away the fact that wholesale energy prices on European markets have gone up 45% in August, for instance, as Vladimir Putin has made clear. He is going to turn the gas off to put the frighteners on Western Europe as he tries to gain leverage in this East-West economic war. Keir Starmer's party want to just freeze the energy price cap and then the government pays the difference. That's one way of doing it. Liz Truss, so far, wants to give people money in order to pay those higher prices, so-called handouts and or tax cuts. Rishi Sunak's roughly the same. The energy industry actually is coming up with a plan saying to the government, give the money to us, we will absorb the costs, and then we will put those costs on future bills over a longer period of time. Three distinct methods. I think it will be a hybrid of those three. They all have problems, they all have benefits, they all have drawbacks. I think it will be some kind of combination. But we should say, you know, a lot of GB News viewers and listeners are worried about this. Something will happen to help people meet their energy bills. Not right the way up the income scale. The better off they're going to, you know, maybe,
it's an inconvenience.
Maybe no skiing holiday at half term. You know, the better off are going to have to take a lot of this. But I think particularly at the lower and middle income scale, there will be assistance.
Really reassuring message.
Yeah.
It's going to be bleak tomorrow, but help is on the way.
Absolutely.
Liam, thank you. It's important to get that message across. You've been watching and listening to The Briefing with me, Gloria De Piero. I'm back every Monday to Thursday from noon. Up next, it's On the Money with Liam, so don't go anywhere. But for now, it's time for your weather.
Hello again, I'm Ada McGibbon from the Met Office. The heavy, thundery rain that we've seen across parts of East Anglia in the southeast eases during the next few hours. It then feels cooler compared with yesterday, and brighter skies follow the main area of rain, which has moved up from the continent and is now being swept away by a cold front. Meanwhile, a ridge of high pressure builds in from the west, but still some changeable weather for western Scotland, Northern Ireland, scattered showers here. Best of the sunshine, northern and western England as well as Wales. Cooler air arriving here compared with the last few days. And finally, by the end of the afternoon, the heaviest of the rain clears away from East Anglia. A few showers follow and a much less humid feel, with temperatures here reaching 25 or 26 Celsius, low 20s for Western England, Wales and high teens for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Now, the showers continue in Western Scotland and Northern Ireland overnight. In fact, some more prolonged rain at times here, with clear spells elsewhere across much of southern and eastern Scotland, England and Wales.